Welcome back to part 3 of our mouse maze game. So far all we have right now is a intro screen where you click start and then your maze pops up, but right now it doesn't actually do anything. So let's go ahead and get this working. Okay, so let's go to our actions window and we want to find the start level function. And if you remember, start level is going to be called every time the player clicks on our stage. So we have to check to see where our player is actually clicking. Okay, so we want to check to see if the player clicks on our start button, okay, or our start point, and that's when we're going to start the game. So before we do anything, because we're going to be checking the start button from our maze variable or movie clip, whatever you want to call it, we need to first check to see if the maze is not null. We need to see if the maze has something in it. So if the maze is active, then what we're going to do is we're going to check to see where the player actually clicked. And the way we do that is there's a function called hit test point. And what you can do is check to see if you click specifically on a point of the map. And I'll kind of explain that a little better as we go along. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if maze dot, and we're going to access our start point, and I called mine start point MC. So if maze dot start point MC dot, and this is a function in the API. You can look it up if you want to know more about it, or you can Google it. Whatever you want to work, whatever you want to do, just find more information about it if you're curious. But we want to say hit test point, okay? And this is going to take 3 arguments, okay? First of all, we need to give it a point on our map or on our stage. How do we do that? Well, Flash has a built-in function for handling where the mouse is. So we're going to say mouse x, okay, comma, mouse y. So we're going to give it where the mouse's x is, so left and right, where the y is, up and down. And then the very last variable in our function that we're passing in is just going to be the value true. Okay, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Okay, so what this is going to do, this is going to check to see if our mouse is touching our start point MC on our maze. And if it is, let's just go ahead and trace out start level. Okay. Now, by setting this equal to true, or passing in the value true, this is going to check against each pixel. Okay, so this is what's going to, there's 2 options here. You set it to true, and it looks to see if you clicked on a pixel. You set it to false, it looks to see if you clicked within the bounding box. And let me explain that by showing you. I guess that's the best way to do it. Okay, so right now this is set to true. So it's going to check for each pixel. So if I click right next to the circle, nothing's going to happen. But I click on the circle, you see it says start level. Okay. If I set this to false and then run, it's going to check the bounding box instead of each individual pixel. So if I click right next to the circle here, see I'm not actually clicking on it, but it's still saying show level or start level. And the reason for that is if you go into maze 1, there's a bounding box, which is this blue outline around our movie clip that'll be checked for being hit if we pass in the value of false. So we want to pass in true because we want them to actually click on our movie clip. Okay, so let's just put this, let's put a little comment, true, sorry, pass in true to check against actual pixels. And this whole thing here is going to return a value true or false. It'll return true if it hit, it'll return false if it didn't. Okay, so check to see if mouse hit start point. Okay, so now that we know that this works, let's get rid of start level. Okay, and make sure you have true here. So let's get rid of start level. And let's put on, we want to say let's actually get rid of the start point when we click on it. So let's say maze.remove child. So we're going to remove the child from the maze because start point is underneath maze instead of the stage. And we're going to remove, well, what are we going to remove? Maze.start, point MC. So now when we click, this should remove the start point from the maze. I'm going to save it and run. Let's just make sure this works. If we click start and then start again, our start movie clip goes away. But we didn't actually start the level yet, so let's actually go ahead and say level started equals true. Okay, now I'm going to go back up here for just a second. Maybe you're a little confused about this. Remember, you can check to see if something equals something else. Well, you can say equals equals true, and this will work exactly the same. Because we're going to check to see if this returns a value of true, meaning it hit something. The reason why we don't have to check for true is because when you put equals equals, it takes these two sides and evaluates either to true or false. So setting it equal to true, saying if it's equal to true, is the same as just returning this, because this is going to be true or false. So is true equal to true? Yes, it would be, so it would return true. And if false isn't equal to true, then it will return false. So it's not necessary to put this here, and it's kind of a tongue twister. If it makes more sense for you to put the double equal sign and then true, you can do that there, but it's not necessary for this, okay? So now, once we do all this, we're going to start our level, and then we actually need to do something. So how do we get our maze functioning? Well, that's what we're going to do in our update game. So the first thing we want to do is we don't want to do any of this unless our level is started. So we'll say if level started. Okay. Well, what do we want to do? First, we want to make sure our maze actually has something in it, because there might be some points in time where for a split second we don't have our maze active when we're switching levels. So let's just be safe and check to see if maze does not equal null. Okay, and let's put some comments on this. We'll say if we started the current level, if a maze is active. So if we started our current level and a maze is active, we can actually use an and here if we wanted to. You can do and maze not equals null. And I'm going to do it this way. Let's do it this way. So if we started the current level and maze is active, sorry, and a maze is active, and now we can get rid of this. So we don't need that embedded statement. It kind of works the same. So if we have an active maze and the level is started, we want to check to see if our player has hit our endpoint. And if they hit our endpoint, then we want to say that they won. All right, so let's do if maze.endpoint MC, okay, dot hit test point. We're going to check where the mouse is. Oops. True, and we want to do per pixel collision check. So it's going to check every pixel. And if they hit the endpoint, then we want to say go to the next level, right? So we made a function already for get next level, didn't we? So let's go ahead and try this out, see if this actually works now. So if we hit, so if we reached endpoint, and if you want to put another comment here saying true is to check against actual pixels, and I don't like having things out far like that. So let's cut this, and actually let's put it here. So true is to check against actual pixels. We're going to go to the next level. Now remember, we said that our last level was level 1, so it should say you win if we do this correctly. Now we click start, We click on start, the game will start. It's not checking yet to see if we hit a wall, but if we hit end, it removes our maze, and now it says you won because that was the last level. Awesome. So now let's do the part where we hit the walls. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if we hit anything in the maze. And we're going to do an else if for this, and I'll explain that in just a second, okay? So we'll say else if we hit the maze, so maze dot hit test point, okay? And make sure you're not using hit test object. Hit test object is something different. We're going to use hit test point, and we say mouse x, mouse y, and this has to be per pixel, so we'll say true, okay? Then what do we want to do? Well, then we want to say game over. And did we make a game over screen yet? No, we did not. So let's just go ahead, and for now we'll say trace, you lost. Okay. So what this is going to do is maze.hitTestPoint is going to check every single pixel, because this is true, including our endpoint, because it's inside of the maze, right? So what we do first is we check to see if we're hitting the endpoint, because we're hitting the endpoint, we want to go to the next level. But then else, if we're hitting any other part of the maze, we want to say you lost. So let's save and run. We'll click start again. And now if we hit an edge, you see on our top left it says you lost a whole bunch of times. And because it's not resetting or anything like that, the player can basically cheat and just jump to end, and it says they won. But for now, that'll work. So let's create a game over function. So let's go down below to handle player 1. Let's just copy this, and we'll say do important stuff when the player loses the game. Change it to handle player lost, and we'll say you lost for now. Okay, so we'll just say you lost. We'll take this function here, copy it, go back up to where we were saying you lost, and just place that in there. And if we test, it should pretty much do exactly the same thing. So now we have start, click start, it says you lost, hit the end, it says you won. Great. Let's actually make it lose. So back into our actions window, we're going to do something with our get next level function. Okay? What we want to do is we basically want to do all this part here and remove current maze without actually incrementing our current level. So we're going to make a new function that's very similar to what we have already. So let's go ahead, and I just deleted those two just because they're bothering me. Let's go ahead and copy this, paste it right below it, and we're going to call this function reload current level. Okay, so instead of getting the next level, we just want to reload the current level. All right, so we will need to remove the current maze. We don't want to increment the current level number. Okay, because we're not changing the level number, we don't need to check for the player winning because they haven't won. We're just reloading the level. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Now this else statement needs to go away. Make sure you get that other curly bracket. And now this is all tabbed differently, so let's kind of select all this, press shift and tab, and it'll slide it over to the left one. So now if the if we call this function, we should reload our current level. We'll set level started to false, and it'll have a new start point and all that jazz. So handle player lost, we can save for another time, but reload current level, let's go up where we put handle player lost and replaced it. So now instead of saying you lost, when we hit the edge of our maze, it should just say, or should just reload the current level and start again. So now if we start, we click start, you go off the edge, you see our start comes back. Same thing. So let's see if we can get to the end. There we go. So in the next video, we'll go over creating a game over screen. But before I end this video, I want you to do some cleaning up, and maybe this will better explain the use for functions. Okay? So back in our actions window, if you notice, this code here looks almost like it is exactly the same as this code here. And if we wanted to change any part of this later, then what would happen is we'd have to change it both times. So what we can do is we can take this code and just make it a function. So let's make a new function. We'll say function pull current maze with magic. Actually, instead of pull, let's say add. Okay, because remember I said this was one of those complicated things that I didn't necessarily need you to understand. And we're going to take this from here. Okay, we're going to cut it. We're going to paste it. Oops. We're going to paste it here. Okay. And we're going to replace it with add current maze with magic. So here, say add current maze with magic. And then down here, or up here, excuse me, same thing. Add current maze with magic. So we reset level started, and we pull the current level with magic, okay? So now if we test this out, it should work exactly the same. So we'll say start, click on start, reload, good. And if we win, bam, there we go. So next step is going to be adding a game over or you won screen. But for now, that's it for this video.